Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting momentarily. We just had to respond to an email.
Story of my life. All right, sending tweets out. Let me send an emoji to someone. Two beer, two beer glasses clanking makes sense. Uh,
Cool.
Let me connect my Wi-Fi just in case.
Hello, Phantom Ocean. 3.
All right, tweets are a go. Let me
Good.
get my notes.
Let me know if our audio is good and balanced, or if one of us is louder than the other. Because for some reason that changes every week, even though I touch nothing.
All right, I guess I'll start recording.
Yep.
All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 302 for March 3rd, 2023. Sorry, I just busted out a Boston accent. I love saying March. I do not have a Boston accent, thankfully, although I do find it one of the more funny accents out there. This week, we do have an exciting podcast with myself and Zach Bowden here. We'll be talking about the Windows 11 Moment 2 update as that is now live, and we'll talk about what's in there, as well as the big surprise, which is maybe not a surprise, which is Bing Chat and the taskbar. Also, some Windows 12 rumors. Yes, those are starting to basically perkle. No, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't say it, but it's starting to they're starting to come out. Also, we reviewed the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1. Is it a good competitor to Surface Pro 9? We'll find out. There were also some new Dell laptops announced at Mobile World Congress, along with some new Lenovo stuff. And Lenovo showed off a new concept PC, which kind of blew people's minds because it has a rollable display. We'll explain what that is, whether it's good, and whether or not we'll actually see that come to market. And if we have time, we'll figure out the thing of the week. Zach, I should also mention this podcast is sponsored by Indeed. We'll be talking about more of that later. But Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. It's been a pretty busy week for us, I think, with all the Windows news and stuff. How are you?
Yeah, it's been kind of an interesting week. Yeah, Windows news has definitely been in the headlines, and as long as the Bing Chat stuff has also been happening. I should mention the Bing Chat, and do I have the? Yeah, I do. So we just got word that the release notes for the Bing preview release have gone up on the Microsoft Bing blogs, which is just kind of fun to say. Bing blog. So we're told every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, that's 12 p.m. Eastern time, they will be posting change logs to the Bing Chat and Bing Chat AI and all that kind of stuff, which is really kind of interesting. And I guess we should probably cover that because there was some kind of big news this week. So I'll just run through the list quickly, but there were chat tones. Microsoft's, we introduced the ability to toggle the tone of chat from precise, which focuses on shorter, more search-focused answers, to creative, which gives responses that are longer and more descriptive. The middle setting, balance, is somewhere in between. You'll notice a color change in the UX between purple, blue, and green, depending on which is selected. Our goal is to let you decide the type of chat behavior that best meets your needs. We'll continue to tune this experience based on feedback. We also have turn counters. As we mentioned last week, we've set the limit of chat turns in a single conversation to 6. It's our intention to increase these limits, but in the meantime, we realize it may be difficult to anticipate when you'll need to reset to a new topic. You'll now see a turn counter and stoplights appear at the bottom of each Bing response to signal where you are in the conversation. Next up is a page context in Edge. If you use Bing Chat Experience built into the Edge dev channel, which is really kind of the best experience in my opinion, for Windows, Bing was sometimes unable to recognize the content of the page you were browsing. we fixed this problem for most scenarios. This is actually one of the cooler features, I believe. Basically, if you're looking at like a really long, say, review of something or just a long document, like you can even put PDFs here in the Edge Dev, like say a 30-page warranty description of a product you bought. You could then have Bing summarize that document for you in bullet points. It's actually really nifty, and gets to the, I think it's just one of the more useful things of the whole new Bing AI. And then finally, chat behavior. We've improved some chat behaviors that previously would have unnecessarily constrained responses or made them appear defensive or adversarial. Bing responses should be more engaging and provide more elaborate observations. And like I said, they're going to be doing this every Friday, which reinforces what I've been saying for a while here, which is all this Bing Chat AI stuff is going to move very rapidly, and they're going to make improvements on the fly, and every week will be. And some of these things came earlier in the week. They're just kind of on Friday wrapping it up, telling you all the changes they made. But you're going to see a lot of this thing evolve very, very quickly. And that's where I think, as we were discussing last week, their advantage over Google is right now. Google's still trying to get a product finished and maybe launched at some point, and Microsoft's out here iterating on it and building off of consumer feedback. That's not to say Google's out of the picture here, because of course not. They're a very powerful company. But Microsoft is taking the lead here, and they're running with it. I kind of like to see it. And I guess that segues nicely into the fact that Windows 11 Moment 2 drops. Now, Moment 2 is not the official name of it. That's just the internal name. But Zach has been talking about for a while. It's been part of the insider channels. And it was a surprise that it came this week. I think people were expecting it more mid-March. But nope, they released it, and there were some surprises in there. So, Zach, why don't you walk us through what that update is and tell us what's all new there?
Yeah, so the whole Moments engineering effort is in full swing at this point. Our reporting on that, it has been proven correct, I think. We've also nailed the timing. We knew the first one was coming straight after RTM last year. The second one was coming February/March. And last time I checked, it is February/March. They announced this on February 28th and made it, or February 27th, one of the two, made it available as an optional update in Windows Update. And it will begin rolling out to all users on March 14th. March is Patch Tuesday. Now, that's significant because it's part of the security update. It's not an additional feature update like the traditional sort of full release is. This is just rolled into the monthly update that Windows gets automatically, which means users can't really say no to it. Businesses do have the option to turn off the features that are in this release, but end users who are not using a managed PC by an organization or whatever have no choice. They are getting these features whether they like it or not, and that's Microsoft's new sort of way of updating Windows. They call it continuous innovation, and that is what the Moments engineering effort is. So yes, let's talk about what Moment 2 is. Again, these don't have official names, which is kind of the most frustrating part about it, because I never know what to call them in headlines. Different sites are calling them different things. I just called it the February 2023 update, which is kind of stupid because it was one day before March. So now it's like it feels out of date. So I didn't know what to call it, so I just called it that for now. But yes, it is the Moment 2 release. And in it is basically a whole bunch of stuff that's been in the beta channel over the last handful of months, bar a couple of things that were surprises. So we'll start with the surprises. I guess we'll start with Phone Link for iOS in preview. So this is something that we've been wondering about for a long time, right? Like, we've seen Intel Unison and before that Dell Mobile Connect, which was a thing that supported both Android and iOS. And we've always wondered, why doesn't Phone Link support iOS? When we asked Microsoft about this years ago, they said, we wanted to do it properly. We asked Apple for permission. They said no. That was the end of the story. Yet this week, Microsoft announced that Phone Link will be getting support for iOS finally via a different method. So instead of using a companion app that installs onto the phone and relays notifications and other data to your PC, the Phone Link app will simply treat your iPhone as a Bluetooth, or rather the iPhone would treat your PC as a Bluetooth accessory. So it's using Bluetooth APIs and all the things Apple allows via Bluetooth to sync to the client. So that allows for things like notifications, including iMessage, as well as phone calls and contacts. So you'll be able to see your contacts, make phone calls, and send messages through SMS, as well as see your iPhone's notifications. Now, you won't be able to really do anything with those notifications, bar maybe reply to some if they allow that. But you won't be able to click into a notification to see your phone screen and stuff like that, or you won't be able to share files between the Phone Link app and your iPhone. None of that functionality is there, at least not yet. Not sure if it will ever
photos.
Come. No photos as well. Yep, you still have to use the iCloud integration within the Windows Photos app to see your photos, which is, I guess, fine. They could very easily add a link to the Photos app within Phone Link if they really needed to. But yeah, so that's a very nice surprise. Dan, I know you're a big fan of these phone relay apps. What do you think of this support?
Yeah, so the Bluetooth API they're relying on is an official API from Apple. It's been around for a
Yeah,
very long time. So they could have always done this. So why haven't they? Because it's still a neutered version of what
right.
it is for Android. I'm pretty sure they wanted basically a parity type experience between the two. So they're very similar. They couldn't do that unless they got special access to some of Apple's tools, which they were not given. So I think they decided not to do it. I do think that once they got iPhotos and iCloud merged into OneDrive slash the Photos app, that sort of opened the gates. That solved one problem that they couldn't do, right? Which was the photo stuff. It's still not as good as having it built in to the phone app, but it's a start, right? And with that, then they could add phone calls and SMS. Now, even with SMS, there are still limitations. For instance, you can't add images and multimedia to the photos, and I'm not even sure how group chat works, right?
Right.
So there's still limitations on this thing, and it's not nearly as good as the experience on Android, but it's something, right? So
Yeah.
being able to make phone calls, seeing text messages come in, and then using your photos through the Photos app is still something for the vast amount of users. And I also imagine that Intel Unison probably did have something to do with this because Intel's like, well, we're going to go ahead and do this and do it our own way. And they've just been pushing it. And I think Microsoft was like starting to feel the pressure, like, well, because I will say that Phone Link is still better in a lot of ways. Like, for instance, Phone Link you can have on multiple PCs and you just jump between it with your phones. Phone Link, or not Phone Link, Unison still only works one-to-one. You can install it on one PC and use it with that phone, but it won't jump between another PC. I don't think that's changed, but the last time I was using it, that's how it was. So that's kind of a bummer. Unless you only have one computer, then it's not a big deal. But clearly, both of these are kind of in competition. I think Microsoft was feeling a little bit of pressure, and I think this is
Yeah.
uh, the best they can do, and I think it's fine. It's
Yeah.
not as good as the Android experience, but
It's the core features. Like if I had to list features that I actually use on Phone Link on my Android device, it
yeah,
is notification relay and maybe calls sometimes. Those are the two big ones, and the iPhone now
yeah,
has that on Windows, and that's a big win I think for Microsoft and for iPhone users. I think it's fair to say most iPhone users are Windows users, so lots more people are about to benefit from the phone link integration that us Android users have been experiencing for quite a while. Now, I should note that although this was announced as part of or alongside the Moment 2 update, it's not actually available yet. It's still it's in preview starting now. For all insiders, that's in every channel, dev, beta, and release preview, which means I believe they're going to fast track this and get this out to production sooner rather than later. So it
yeah.
makes sense that they announced it alongside this update because I think it will land during the period of this update within the next few weeks. Even then, if you are in the insider program, you may not even have access to it still because it is one of those A/B tests. Again, they're running out in waves, and right now it's a very small group of people. You'll know if you have it because if you open the Phone Link app, you have the option. You'll see the iPhone button there to start setting it up. Otherwise, if you don't have access, that option will be grayed out. So there you are.
That's what mine is. It's grayed out. It says
Yeah,
iPhone coming soon. I have to
yeah.
check my other devices. Believe it or not, the A/B testing on these is actually related to your device, like
Oh,
not
really?
your
Interesting.
account per se.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you can get stuff on other devices that are on the insider accounts. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of strange that way. So
Yeah. So other features included in this update is an updated Microsoft Teams chat interface. I'd seen this; that they sort of were testing this in the dev channel a while back, and it was sort of on and off for a while. But this is now official in Moment 2, and it's actually really nice now. Like the original version of Teams chat wasn't, and it was like really disjointed. You click on a chat, and it'd pop up a window somewhere else on the desktop. Wasn't great. It's now all consolidated within the chat flyout. So you click on a conversation, it will appear within that flyout, and the UI looks really nice. You now get a little preview of your webcam. Which is sometimes not very flattering, and you can turn that off, luckily. But yeah, it's really nice. I really do want to give Teams Chat a try again. I just don't have any friends who want to try it with me. Everyone's on Telegram or Slack or Skype or whatever else. No one's using Teams Chat, which is kind of a shame. But yeah, that's in the Moment 2 update. There's also an updated Quick Assist app, which is nice. Full screen widgets is finally here, as well as support for third-party widgets. Obviously, that will depend on whether third-party developers actually support the widgets panel. So far, we have Spotify and Facebook Messenger. Hopefully, more will be on the way in
and
due
also
course.
Phone Link is in there now, which is pretty
Phone
cool.
Link is in there, yeah. Yeah. So you can. That's actually a really nice widget as well. I actually have that in mine. It shows you your most
Yeah.
recent notifications, your phone's battery, signal, and a couple other bits of info, which is really cool. The 2-in-1 taskbar minimize thing is here as well. So updates for tablet mode users is here, and this is actually really nice. So the Windows experience is now a lot more sort of full screen, or it feels more full screen because of the taskbar now getting out of the way. And this is going to be very beneficial for tablets that with 11-inch screens or less, because I believe if you're using Windows on an 11-inch screen or less, or smaller rather, Windows automatically full screens apps. You can obviously undo that if you don't want to run an app in full screen, but by default it will maximize all apps, and that's really nice. And now the taskbar gets out of the way, so you have even more space for your apps. Screen recording in Snipping Tool is finally here, as well as tabs in Notepad. Some accessibility updates, new energy recommendations in settings, AI in the start menu. Now this is only for Azure Active Directory joined PC, so this is only for organizations currently, at least. Maybe it'll come to everybody eventually. But the recommended feed at the bottom of Start will now smartly, I guess. Smartly, is that a word? I assume it is. Will smartly suggest files and stuff related to, upcoming meetings or email threads you've had, and will try to sort of surface the top level files it thinks you want to access on any given day. And then lastly, and this is the most controversial addition, I think, personally. We'll see how Dan feels in a second. But they've added Bing Chat to the taskbar. And I have issues with this because they made a huge deal about this as like, hey, they headlined this update with Bing Chat being the sort of champion of this release. They're like, yeah, look, we're bringing AI to the Windows taskbar. When it actually rolled out, it's no more than a shortcut to Bing.com. There's no AI in Windows search. There's no integrated native experience for interacting with the Bing chatbot. It's simply you click on anything related to Bing within the Windows search pane now. It just opens Edge, and you just use Bing.com to do it all. And they made a huge deal about this being the latest addition to Windows. All the headlines were like, yeah, Bing Chat comes to Windows. And the reality is that isn't what happened at all. Dan, were they lying, or am I making a big deal out of nothing?
I remember when we got the embargo, I was like, whoa, damn, like they actually did this quickly. I'm like, that's awesome. And then, we got it. And then I was like, sometimes like I'm a little shy on this stuff. I'm like, am I missing something here? Like, like this doesn't really seem that amazing. It's funny because I was actually just getting used to the little cartoon icons that they would put into the search bar. Which would change daily. They'd just be these little pleasant kind of like a forest or like, I don't know, mountains and stuff. It just looked kind of nice. I liked it. And they just replaced that with the new Bing button, which actually I think most people probably prefer. I actually kind of would like to go back to the little cartoon things. I just thought it looked nice. But you're right. I mean, this doesn't do anything. It just, you click it and it just brings up the same search, and they basically will well, let's see. Hold on. Let me do it now. Yeah, it literally doesn't even do anything. It's not even showing in mine right now. It just has the Bing button. I actually have to hit it twice, basically. So if I open the search, and then I have to go then hit the Bing icon. So the Bing icon doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So I get this. Okay. So let me back up for a sec with a little bit of understanding where they're coming from. They did this simply for basically advertising purposes, just to kind of get it out there and awareness, and so people can start to use it. It was a little bit deceptive, but I totally understand why they're doing it. That said, is this the end game? No, absolutely not. I'm pretty sure they're going to build into Windows 11 or maybe Windows 12, but hopefully I'm sure we'll get it in Windows 11, a native chat type experience that's tied more deeply, sort of like what they did with Teams, like that new Teams icon thing on the taskbar is actually pretty cool, right? It's kind of what we originally asked for when that first came out, and I think they're going to do that, but that's going to take time to design, and kind of they're going to have discussions about how it's going to work, how it's going to look. They're going to have to do the graphics, and they're going to have to then code it, and then they're going to do some quality control. Then they're going to roll to insiders. And so that's going to be a process. I think some of us were hoping that process is already further along than it is. It may be, right? They may be already a couple months into it, and we'll see something more definitive come out. So that's my guess. The long term, we'll definitely see something much more rich integrated into the OS, because why wouldn't they? But you're right. This is literally a placeholder, and it's disappointing in that sense. It has not it it fails in that regard. But then again, I already kind of knew about it. So maybe it's for people who are new to the Bing Chat experience to sort of get them to bootstrap them into it, which I understand why you would want to do. I would make that same decision. But you're right. I think they oversold it a little bit
Yeah.
because when we both got the embargo, we're both like, oh, wow, this should be really wild. But yeah, it's just not there yet. So, but it will come, I'm sure. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think that there's a bigger plan for it. It just annoyed me that they headlined this update with that feature, whereas the feature is simply a
yeah.
shortcut to Bing.com. There's so many other cool and big improvements in this update, such as the new tablet mode or screen recording and snipping tool, tabs in Notepad. That's a big deal for lots of people. That could have headlined this update and been like the star feature, but no, that they chose a shortcut to Bing.com as the star feature, and it's them riding on the recent positive press they've had for Bing.com and
Yeah.
that whole marketing thing. So yeah. It annoyed me a little bit when I saw that, and so I wrote an editorial, which actually did quite well. I think a lot of people agreed once they were able to test out the Bing chat stuff within Windows Search. That, oh yeah, it really is just a shortcut to Bing.com in Microsoft Edge. It doesn't listen to your browser of choice if you use Chrome or Brave or whatever as your default browser. Clicking on any of the Bing chat stuff in Windows Search will open Edge. Doesn't matter. Yeah. There you are. So that is the Moment 2 stuff. We are expecting another Moment update relatively soon, May/June timeframe, I believe. Just this week, Microsoft began testing those bits in the beta channel, and I say those bits because there's actually not much in there yet. They're going to be adding stuff to the beta channel over the next month or two, which will shape up to be the Moment 3 release, which comes out in May or June. The dev channel already has a few bits in there that will be backported to beta channel. You know how the process works: goes to beta, then eventually release preview, and then to production. Someone in the chat is saying that they've already installed the optional Moment 2 update, but they're missing a few things like tablet mode improvements. That may be because Microsoft said, although you can install the optional update now, some features won't actually be made available to you until March 14th, when the update essentially GAs, goes to general availability. If you want all the features now, I recommend you join the Windows Insider release preview ring, because that will turn on all the features basically straight away. So if you want access to them now, also if you're an enthusiast, I think everybody should be in the release preview ring at minimum, because release preview is production code. You're just getting it earlier than everybody else. They're just rolling out 2 weeks before to make sure the finalized code that they deem ready to go is actually ready to go, and there's no like hidden bugs and stuff. So most of the time, 99.9% of the time, it's all good stuff. You know, Dan's in release preview on all of his PCs, and he's never had any issues except for 2 weeks ago when he green screened for no reason.
Right. Yeah, except for that. Yeah, release preview is great. You also get that's the important thing. If you do this update, and we did put a note into the article about that because it's something we tend to forget. Whenever you do these updates and you say Moment 2 and you're getting these new features, you need to go, it'll happen eventually in the background, but you need to go to the Microsoft Store and update your apps. Yeah. Because a lot of the things like the snipping tool, the Notepad tabs will come through the store then. You're going to get the new app updates. And unless you do that, you'll open Notepad, you're like, I don't see no tabs. And you open the snipping tool and you're like, I don't see a video record here. So you need to go update those apps. Like I said, it'll do it eventually on its own. But if you are looking to get them right away, as soon as it reboots, just go right to the store, force the updates, and you'll see a bunch of the inbox apps will get updated. And then you'll get all those new features. So that's always an important side note here.
Yeah. So we should move on here to some Windows 12 news. Windows 12 in air quotes, because of course we don't actually know what the name of the next version of Windows will be, but everyone seems to be settled on the Windows 12 branding for now, so let's just call it Windows 12. But a new leak this week from apparently a reliable leaker had posted about the upcoming Intel Meteor Lake S desktop chipsets, and I guess he sort of pasted a few bits of information from an internal document he received, but within that internal document, he says that it has support for Windows 12 on the list. Now, it's interesting because this chip is expected to ship in the 2024 timeframe, which of course lines up perfectly with what we've been reporting with Windows Next Valley being a 2024 release. It does look like 2024 is going to be a sort of big moment for the industry, where I guess there's another new release of Windows coming. We've got chips coming from Intel and AMD, and obviously we've got the Orion chips from Qualcomm coming, which would be a very big deal for Windows on ARM and Windows on tablets in general, I believe. This is looking. I think it's fair to say 2024 is looking more and more concrete for whatever this next version of Windows or this next sort of push from Microsoft is going to be, from both hardware and software perspectives. NPUs, I'm sure NPUs are going to be a big part of 2024.
Yep.
Will Intel have them on board? They might have something similar. We know AMD's already agreed to sort of jump on the NPU bandwagon. Would be shocked if Intel doesn't, right? Of course, and
Intel already does have some stuff there, and Qualcomm does too, of course. Qualcomm's actually kind of ahead on everybody there. And you mentioned those new Intel chips, and I haven't read too much about them. Well, I can tell you though, the reason why it's significant, these aren't like the 12th to 13th gen, which are literally, they seem faster. That's literally the difference. We saw the big architectural change going to 12th gen with the big little cores. Going into the next gen, they're going to a chiplet design where they're basically breaking the CPU down into even smaller separate components, which then can be mixed and matched by OEMs, which makes our job a lot more difficult. Because on reviewing laptops, OEMs are going to be able to kind of mix and match different kind of components on a smaller scale. And these are supposed to be also the ones that start to prioritize efficiency. So when I was in Israel talking to Intel, I was like, what's the deal with efficiency? Like the new chips, they're powerful, and they are. Like if you haven't tried a 12th gen or the 13th gen stuff, they're very powerful chips. Like with all the cores and everything like that, they're kind of ridiculous how good they are. And they don't get very hot, and the new fans and thermal solutions have been very good. But the battery life, if anything, is on par with 11th gen, sometimes maybe a little bit worse, sometimes a little bit better, but it's not, where Apple is, obviously. And Intel knows this. Like they're like, this current architectural stuff we're working on is focusing on power because they're really looking at desktop. They're still doing, obviously, mobile is very important to them, but these are really kind of like focused on the desktop architecture where they fly, right? They're still kind of destroying AMD in a lot of ways on that, especially when it comes to the multi-core, right? You can now get like a 24-core CPU, which is just absurd. But the next gen is going to change the architecture up even a little bit more. They're going to go down to different nanometer size, and these should be, like I said, a little bit more focused on efficiency for battery life. And that's going to be really interesting for a couple of reasons. Obviously, we all want that and need that. But two, as you mentioned, Orion is coming out. Qualcomm's new next-gen processor that was built by the people who built Apple's processors.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to get too hyped about those because Gen 1 processors tend to be okay. And I know everyone's going to say, well, the M1 was amazing. It was, but the M1 technically was like an A16.
Yeah.
Meaning that that chip to get there was in development for a decade. Because Apple had been building its own ARM processors for its other products for a decade. And then eventually got to a point where it could scale up and make it more powerful. So the M1, was amazing out the door. But if you count the 10 years of development, it's a little bit apples and oranges, pardon the pun. So I think Orion will be interesting, but there's a lot of questions, right? It's a big change. And I think, the Gen 1 may be really good, but I don't want to be like, this is going to be the holy grail slam dunk that's going to destroy Apple. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be one of those chips where we try and it's like, it looks good, it has promise, but it's got to evolve a little bit. Don't forget, Qualcomm went through this before with the Snapdragon series, between the 6 and the 700s and stuff. They remember how hot they used to get? Even with the Lumias, the old Lumias, they would get really burning hot and the battery life wasn't amazing. And now you get a new Snapdragon and it's actually like, oh, these are actually really good processors now. So I think it's going to be kind of an interesting thing to watch.
I will say that I have seen bits and pieces regarding obviously what's the 2024 plans, at least from Microsoft's side, and also spoken to a few people who are familiar with ongoing plans, and the general consensus does seem to be that they are very confident that the chips coming in 2024 will be able to compete with
Yeah.
M2/M3 or M3/M4, that sort of range of Apple chips.
Yeah.
Obviously Apple came in and sort of destroyed the market with how amazing their chips were, and the PC space has been playing catch up. But Microsoft, for whatever reason, seems to think 2024 will be the year that they are finally able to come back with a competing product that isn't immediately laughed out the door because it's not efficient or doesn't meet power to performance, whatever, you get the point. It will finally compete, and Windows 12 is supposed to sort of embrace that, and there's going to be special versions of Windows. This is all high level stuff. Obviously this might be different once it actually starts shipping, but there'll be a version of Windows that actually embraces these new chips, and especially with AI and whatnot, which is supposed to be a big deal about Windows 12. That's going to be a huge deal for new hardware. The 2024 is shaping up to be a very interesting year. I'm going to assume this is more second half 2024 than first half. You never know. Maybe it'll be sort of first half, but this is. I'm getting quite excited for Windows 12 because we've already seen like that UI leak. I keep hearing there's a big focus on tablets for Windows 12, which would make sense if you consider the fact that chips are getting more efficient, which means tablets are sort of more capable again, right? Especially if they are like Apple chips, where they are very powerful.
And display technology is getting super interesting, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very, very excited for 2024. Between all the innovation happening in hardware to the innovation supposedly happening in software. I am working on this story, but I'm starting to hear more about what Windows Next Valley is supposed to be as a sort of OS, I guess. Like, there's lots of moving parts here. Remember Windows Core OS? We've talked about that many times. They're not doing Windows Core OS. That's not coming back. But that idea, that vision for a more sort of lightweight version of Windows isn't dead. It's still something they would like to achieve. And again, with these new chips coming, these new, more powerful, more efficient chips, they're trying to work their way towards it. They're dragging themselves to a version of Windows that can compete with the likes of Chromebooks, with the likes of iPadOS, with the likes of Mac and Apple Silicon. And 2024 is supposed to be the year where some of that at least comes to fruition. So I am very, very excited for the next 2 years.
This is, you mentioned that we talked about the new chips, and what's important is not just their hardware, but that they're working closely with Microsoft to, as you mentioned, optimize them for the operating system. Because what good is the new hardware if the OS is just the same shotgun approach, right? And it just the point of these new processors is to offload background tasks to sub-processors and different components so that the main CPU or GPU isn't necessarily doing it all. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, you can make things more efficient. So you could run AI directly on the CPU or GPU, but it's just like, well, what happens if you want to use that thing for the actual thing you're running, right? You don't want to sacrifice that. Not to mention that CPU isn't necessarily optimized to run the AI stuff, but that's why NPUs are super important, because they are optimized to sort of run this kind of code. So we saw this with with Intel 12th Gen and 13th Gen with the task scheduler thing. So basically, when you have an app that's in the forefront that you're actually looking at working in, say like a video editor, you get the performance cores are attacking that. That's where all the power is trying to go to. Meanwhile, you have your efficiency cores are handling any tasks that are running in the background that you may be doing in a secondary. And then when you switch to that window for another thing, the performance cores can jump to that. And it allows, and it's been getting smarter and smarter so that the performance cores will eventually be able to jump off as your task is completed to a thing that is running in the background to get that completed as well. But you need the operating system to optimize and take advantage of those cores, and that's what they did. That's why Intel, I think, was in a better position for this last year or two. And I will say, I know everybody keeps talking about AMD, and I'm still rooting for them. I'm trying a new AMD laptop right now, and it's very powerful. It's technically more powerful than some Intel chips, but I haven't found anything else that great about it. I've actually had some issues with it. So, and I don't want to review it right now because I still got to do way more testing with it. I just got a new version. So, but this is laptops, right? We're talking. And I just still find Intel just way ahead on the laptop space, but I'm more than willing to give AMD a shot. And speaking of, we can talk about that in a few minutes too with Lenovo's new laptops, specifically the Z series, which are AMD exclusive. But before we get to that, I do got to do an ad read. So this podcast is sponsored by Indeed. When it comes to hiring, you need to trust your gut. But what if you could give your gut some help? I needed that this morning. I had some bad food last night. When you want to find top talent fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume or Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. And this is something obviously that as a company we should be using. I don't believe we do, but Zach and I know that when we sometimes put a job application or opening up on the web, it's a little bit messy. A lot of people apply and everybody wants to work for Windows Central until you realize it is actually work and it's not always fun. Although we do all love our jobs, there are mornings where you get up and you're like, the writing part is actually sometimes the easy thing. It's then all the formatting and then all the things you got to fill in, the photos, the images. It's actually can be a very tedious job. So filtering all that out, I kind of wish we had Indeed. So, candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see and search, according to US Indeed data. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job, and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately after you post. With Instant Match, you can start hiring fast. It's kind of cool. I wonder, speaking of my gut, I bet they're using machine learning for all this, which is probably another good opportunity almost to talk about AI and machine learning, right? So they're obviously, the problem in the past was you would have to, you would accept, 100 applications for a job, and then a human would have to go through that and sift through it and try to find people. And then go through the interview process. What this is doing, of course, it's actually going out there on Indeed and finding candidates who already match what you're looking for. And then you can ask them to apply to your job, which is kind of cool because you already just, narrowed down a huge list and you're not wasting your time. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/WCP for Windows Central Podcasts to start hiring now. That's again, Indeed.com/WCP. And you can go there and you can get some discounts. As always, we appreciate them sponsoring this podcast. Super helpful stuff, especially if you have your own small business or looking to start one. I've missed many opportunities in the past to do my own small business. I had one kind of this week I thought about, which was kind of funny. But I don't want to spill the idea because I may still do it. Anyway, that's it for Indeed. Let's move on. So we did get to do, I didn't, but Zach Bowden reviewed the Dell XPS 13 2-in-1 9315. This actually came out late last year. It's running Intel 12th gen, so not the latest. But listen, if you're trying to get a laptop between 12th gen and 13th gen, don't worry about that. 13th gen, you're going to get more power, you're a little bit more efficient, but they're not that's not a reason to skip a laptop, especially if you can get it for cheaper. So if you don't know, the XPS 13 2-in-1, it has gone through some changes. It used to be a straight up laptop with a 360 hinge that looked like the XPS 13, and I actually really enjoy that device. Well, they swapped it out now for basically a tablet form factor that's kind of akin to the Surface Pro series, although they use a more Huawei type keyboard cover, which lays flat, and then it has the little triangle origami thing in the back as a kickstand instead of a kickstand built in.
I hate that.
I know, I'm not a fan of that either, right? It's I don't know why companies use it. I imagine it's a bit cheaper to do. And some people may like it, but it's like for me that takes away all the advantages of the Surface Pro. I love the built-in kickstand and the angled keyboard, and this has neither. Nonetheless, it's a pretty cool tablet. It is a fanless design, which is really nice, and it does run Intel Core i5 12th Gen U series. You do get a pen with it. It has a really nice display with matching very thin borders and just looks really great.
That is nice. I will say the design of the actual tablet certainly does beat the Surface Pro, but when you factor in the accessories around the products, the Surface Pro comes out on top, I think. That's how I'm viewing it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, this is a very it's got rounded corners, but it's also very like angled edges. Yeah, it's a great looking tablet. And as a tablet for drawing and all that, it's actually really good. Its downfall, surprisingly, is battery life is just not great. It's maybe 4 to 6 hours if you're pushing it, which is not that much less than Surface Pro. But Zach also has been using Surface Pro X, the original one, for the last couple of years. And they say that that still gets better battery life, and they prefer it better, and that the display is better too, which is kind of interesting. So, yeah, the display quality falls short for this price range, and the folio cover not as convenient as an integrated kickstand. That said, it goes for $1,249 at Dell, $1,300 at Walmart. It's an interesting device if you're looking for an alternative for the Microsoft Surface Pro series. But yeah, kind of interesting. Lenovo. We should also mention, there are new Dell XPS laptops that came out this week, or refreshes, I should say. So the XPS 15 and XPS 17 were refreshed, and the XPS 15, of course, is a legendary device. Nothing really compares to it. Lenovo has a ThinkPad X1, what is it called? Ultimate, Ultra, something like that. But it's not really quite the same as the XPS 15 is just gorgeous. So that has been upgraded to Intel 13th Gen i5, i7, and i9. These are H series processors. You can get up to 64 gigs of RAM, which is pretty nice, and 8 terabytes of storage. Of course, you can upgrade that yourself. And you can get Intel Arc graphics, which is kind of cool in the 15-inch. You can also get RTX 4050, 4060, or even 4070 graphics for the 15-inch. And the 17-inch goes up to a 4080 GPU, which is really nice. And of course, you're getting the amazing OLED touchscreen, 400 nits, 1920, or you can get that up to it's like a 3.5K resolution, or you can get a full HD and save yourself some money there. Bluetooth 5.2 and all that. Those are actually now available, which is pretty nice. Those are going to be very, very powerful laptops. That XPS 15, if you never tried one, is still just kind of an astonishing device. There's also a new desktop, a Dell XPS Desktop 8960, which is coming out. That has a 13th Gen i7 13700K CPU. Yeah, it's just a nice modern looking. It looks like a block. And it's just a very minimalist design, and it's just kind of really cool. It starts at $24.89 from Dell. Looks like that is now available as well.
I wish Dell would make another all-in-one. I really liked their
yeah.
Oh, what was it? It was the Dell 700 or 7000 something. It had the speakers.
The one
on the
with
bottom.
speakers.
I know HP did one as well at some point, but Dell did one first, and I thought it looked. I loved that. That thing looked amazing.
I used that for a couple of years. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
It had this beautiful glass display that was almost like a TV. Yeah, that was a really cool device. I imagine it just didn't sell as much, but you're right. It was also heavy. That was a heavy device.
Yeah, about all the speakers, yeah.
Like all-in-ones, tend to be pretty mobile, and you couldn't move this, but yeah, you pick that thing up, you're just like, that thing is dense. But yeah, I'm looking at the XPS desktop, and yeah, it's a pretty cool looking device. Very clean, very minimal. You gain a lot of power in there. You can get up to a GeForce RTX 4080. Imagine you can get up to a 4090 if you want to, which is pretty crazy with a Core i9. So you can go really nuts on the XPS desktop. So cool stuff. But Lenovo also, this is because Mobile World Congress was going on, so companies were mentioning updating some things. So Lenovo had some stuff. Their more interesting things was the I like the new Z series, the ThinkPad Z series, they call them, the Z13 and Z16. These are, speaking of AMD, these are cool because these are actually co-designed with AMD. These are AMD exclusive laptops, basically. And so they're designed that way. They're meant for, also I think Z is meant for like Gen Z. They're meant for a younger audience. So they're more modern looking, more cooler looking. Not, they don't have that black, just kind of typical ThinkPad design. They also brought, last year I did an exclusive story with Lenovo talking about how they were exploring using natural materials for their cupboards like flax, and they're actually doing that now. So you can actually order this with an optional, you don't need to, but a flax top cover. So it looks like a wood almost. And it's not like a sticker you put on. It's like the lid itself is like that. And each one is unique and has its own grain and stuff like that. It's really nice looking. Like it's very different. It feels very warm to the touch. It's a really cool, more organic approach to making a laptop, and being flax, it's very sustainable materials that they're using. And they're very they just have a really cool design, edge to edge keyboard, massive touchpad, really nice displays. We reviewed both last year and they got pretty good reviews, but they have haptic touchpads, which is, I thought was interesting, but they're not, I don't know who they were using, but it wasn't Sensel, the one that does the ones for Surface Laptop Studio and did the one for the ThinkPad Titanium. And now it was announced that Sensel, who Lenovo invested in, so there is a relationship there. Lenovo believes in them. Sensel's now doing the touchpads for both of those, which is cool. And this is the first time Sensel is doing what's called basically their full stack. They call it Fusion UX. So Sensel not only does haptics, but they do the touch components and the rest of the design. And that's unusual because usually companies will only do one or the other, but they do the whole design of the touchpad. Up until now, like even the Surface Laptop Studios, so Sensel did the haptics for it, then Microsoft did their own touch layer and basically built around it. So it's only partly Sensel, the important part, I would say. But now Sensel does the whole thing, so it even works even better. And these are the first laptops really that are going to be kind of having that, which is kind of neat. So these get the latest AMD processors. I'm looking forward to trying these out because I think they look really nice. They have really nice displays on them. But yeah, that's a Z13 and Z16. They'll be coming out, I believe, later May, June time. So there'll be some time before they actually hit the market. But the big news was surprise was Lenovo showed off a concept PC and phone. And these had rollable displays. And forgive me, I don't have all the data in front of me. I don't know, Zach, if you can bring it up while I'm talking in terms of the dimensions and stuff. But what this was is basically like a 13-inch laptop, 13 and a half inch laptop. It looked pretty standard. And then you would like hit a button and this motor would drive the display up vertically and expand that display to what would be equivalent to like a 15-inch display, but now it's a taller design. So it looks like sort of like what the Yoga Book 9i is when it's that's a new dual screen laptop. When you open that and mount it, and you have this like very kind of tall thing. It's also like on the fold when the fold goes into that vertical position. So it's the same aspect ratio as those. It's kind of equivalent, I believe, to like stacking two 16:9 displays on top of each other. If that gives you a better idea. And of course, what this means is a lot of people now are switching to this idea of like working with stacking things. Developers often work like this, or they need a longer view. People who use Slack like this as well. And that's why you'll see a lot of times people have multiple monitors and they'll rotate one monitor vertically, and not why that's a thing, because some people like to have one that's vertical. I actually used to do that. I used to just have Slack in a vertical monitor. I should go back to that. But it's a really neat design because it gives you a larger display on the fly, and it just rolls it away and then turns into a normal laptop and closes. Now, the time it took to expand the display was like 10 seconds, but Lenovo was very clear that this is just like a very early prototype, and a production model would go much quicker, right? So this is just sort of a working thing. And they didn't let people handle it, so it's very early stages, but it was very cool. And then they showed a phone, which was, I forgot the size of the phone, but it was like a 6.4-inch or 5.8-inch, and then it would expand to like a 6.7-inch or something like that. It would do the same thing. It would expand vertically, but it did cool stuff. The display could actually go down, and then it would reveal the speaker and selfie cam, and then it would also kind of hide the camera. And there are problems with both of these implementations, of course, which is rollable displays are even newer than foldable, right? And it still introduces some problems, including they're very delicate. A motorized contraption takes up more space. Also, as you're probably thinking, it's a big point of failure. It would kind
Yeah.
of suck if you're like, opening up your display and then all of a sudden and it
Yeah.
stops. So there are going to be definitely issues there. Not that they can't solve them, but I don't know, Zach. I was actually so Mr. Mobile did a video of this, and you can see it on his YouTube channel. We also did it on the site, but I was surprised by how kind of cool this was because up
Mm.
until now we've been focusing on dual screen and just debate about those. Although now that Yoga Book 9i is coming out, we'll do that. And then Lenovo has its Fold, the X1 Fold 16. And we've been looking at those two and going like, hey, what's the future there? Da, 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 da. And then out of nowhere, this rollable stuff comes. I should say out of the nowhere. Samsung has showed off tablets that also you pull apart basically and it expands the display. So these are made by Sharp, I should mention, these displays. But Samsung's also working on it. I don't know. What do you think about the utility of these? Have we been looking at the wrong screen technology between foldable or dual screen, and maybe it's rollable that's going to be the interesting one?
I think for laptops, certainly, as you mentioned there with the X1 Fold, it's basically a tablet that's trying to be a laptop as well through the ability to fold the screen in half. Whereas I think for laptops, it makes more sense to just be a normal laptop that can have a bigger screen when needed. I pulled up some numbers as you were talking there regarding the aspect ratio and stuff. So when the Lenovo's prototype is in normal laptop mode, it's a 12.7-inch display with a 4:3 aspect ratio. But when it gets taller, it turns into a 15.3-inch display with an 8:9 aspect ratio. So it is a very unique aspect ratio. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, it's a cool idea. I think it would make more sense if it went landscape, right? If it rolled out like sideways instead to make a wider screen, if you will. Obviously, I don't know if that's possible currently. I guess it's not, right? Because
No, I think they could. I mean, Samsung, like that's kind of how their tablet that they showed off would work. It would go
yeah,
horizontally expand.
but that,
There
yeah.
definitely be pros and cons, I think, to either approach, and both can coexist, right? There's no reason why it would just be a different flavor of what you want, I guess.
Yeah, but I totally think that for laptops, I think it does make more sense to have just a normal size that can get bigger rather than a size that we expect that we already have that gets smaller. I don't think it makes sense to try and make laptops smaller because laptops are the size that they are because they are the most comfortable to work at. There, we've talked about the Surface Neo many times. You got to handle one, I got to handle a broken prototype, but we both agreed that the Surface Neo was too small as a laptop. It would have been a great tablet, but not a good laptop. Even though it was technically a 13-inch screen once it was unfolded with the two displays working together, but it just was not big enough to be a laptop in our
Yeah.
opinion. And the same was said with the first gen X1 Fold. Just not big enough. It needs to be bigger. So now the X1 Fold 2 is massive, but now it's unwieldy for a tablet. It's just like, I'm not going to use this to read in bed, am I? It's too big. It's now
Yeah.
16, 17 inches. So this is where I think rollables come in. For laptops, it should be rollable. For tablets, it should be 13 inches that can just close when you don't need it. And that's the benefit of that. You make the tablet smaller so it fits in a small bag or whatever. That's the benefit of the Galaxy Fold, right? Or the Surface Duo. It's already a sort of phone-sized device, but just a bit bigger when it's unfolded so that it couldn't fit in your pocket. If you could fold that in half, brilliant. Let me take that with me now. That's the benefit of foldables there, I think. And so, yeah, I think rollables is going to be a big deal for laptops. For phones, I think less so because I'm looking at the Motorola prototype they had, and I don't see the reason for it. Like, it goes from, let me see here. Let me see if I can find the numbers. It went from when it's normal size, it's a 5-inch display with a 15:9 aspect ratio. Then once it's extended, it's a 6.5-inch display with a 22:9 aspect ratio. I just want the 6.5-inch display. I'm never going to have a need to go to 5-inch mode.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'm the opposite. I actually really like that little 5-inch display. I thought that was great for quick messaging, and
Interesting.
I just thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, there are trade-offs, like you said, with the motors. Of course, you don't need to put motors in. I think even some of
You could do
Samsung's
it,
demos they had were just
by hand.
you just physically pulled it apart and pulled it
Which I
back
might
together,
even
so you could.
prefer because it's a more like
Yeah,
manual. It's like you can feel like the because it's like Galaxy Fold, right? You open and close the Galaxy Fold. It
yeah.
feels nice to actually close it yourself and stuff. I think that would make more sense as a manual process.
The problem with the phone, I think a lot of people pointed out, was the fact that the display rolled around and rolled around to the back, which they made use of, which was really
They
cool.
did.
So when the phone was down, so you would basically have the back of it, like you would still have a little bit of the screen exposed and it would act as like a notification screen, which was wild. I was like, oh, that's so smart, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just like it got bigger. The way that they used the display to hide and reveal the cameras and show notifications was brilliant. The problem is, if you were to place your phone down and have that little screen as your notifications, that sounds great in practice, outside the fact that these are very relatively and comparatively soft displays.
Yeah.
So, like even with, I don't even like putting Gorilla Glass Victus displays like my phone down on them
Yeah.
because any sometimes you'd be surprised a little bit of crumbs or something like that on the table could like or table salt or something like that could like put my micro scratches in there. So that's a problem too. Like you need to make the displays more resilient to scratches. Uh, Otherwise, it's just too delicate. Yeah, that issue doesn't really exist with the laptops, but yeah, I think this is actually more interesting than the foldables or dual screens. Not that those shouldn't exist. Like I said, I think the solution here, of course, is it's like when we went through the two-in-one phase where we just had companies experimenting with different form factors and we'll see which one people prefer. And that's what Lenovo is doing right there. And I should be clear, these were concept devices. Uh, but Lenovo has a very good history of taking these things and actually releasing them. In fact, I can't really think of an example where Lenovo ever showed off anything to us. And typically, we've seen the stuff behind the scenes, like the foldable stuff I've seen way before it was made public. They would show me prototypes and, so I knew they were working on it, but I hadn't seen these. But they have a really good history bringing this stuff to market. So my instinct is that we will get these at some point. What they need to do, of course, is reduce manufacturing costs and improve resiliency with them, and making sure if they decide to go with motors, that the motors will last 30,000 times before they burn out or something, and that the screens themselves are good and hold up, between being rolled. But as they solve those problems, yeah, I bet they're actually going to release these because Lenovo is just one of those companies that are like, yeah, we're going to release this wacky thing and see what happens. Like they've done it many times in the past and they'll keep doing it. So I think this is, I don't know, this really changed my idea of what these devices could be. And I think even for smartphones, it would be a little bit more interesting as well. So.
Yeah, I'm not convinced on the rollable aspect for smartphones. I definitely think foldable makes more sense on smartphone and tablets, but rollable is definitely a contender for laptops and sort of larger display type things, where trying to make it as small as possible doesn't really matter. So you don't need to fold it at that point, right? You can just you can roll it into a smaller size, but if it's still an 18-inch screen, then that's fine. I'm not trying to stick it in my pocket or in a bag at that point. So what's the problem? Like Samsung is, I think it's Samsung. Samsung now has a TV or a monitor that you can make curved or uncurved like at will. Like it's one of those.
Oh yeah, they show that at CES. It was a widescreen like monitor, and it could like
Yeah.
had handles on it. LG made that, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah,
was it
LG.
LG? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but another company is releasing it. But yeah, it had handles on it, and you can like flex it and
Yeah.
make it curved or flat. Like I was going to cover that, but I didn't see the value in that. Like I guess there are some people who are like, I want a game now, let me get immersive, and then like I want flat. But I would just keep it curved all the time. I don't know why I
Yeah.
would go flat, but it was amazing that they could do that. So that
Yeah.
was neat. But yeah, LG, Sharp, and Samsung, right? All three of those companies do, and that's what's really going to drive a lot of this innovation, right? Is these different form factors, and that's again where PC is going to be more interesting than Apple, because Apple will, sure, they'll do something like a foldable iPad at some point, but for PC, you're going to see way more experimentation going on with these form factors. Some of it will work, some of it won't work, some of it will be one or two generations, and that's it. But if you're into tech, it's just kind of cool to see this stuff happening, and it does really open your mind to what computers are going to be. Like I keep bringing up on this podcast. Like tell me what a laptop's going to look like in 5 years. I don't know. Like the way this technology is evolving so quickly, it's like we got some really wacky designs, and I think it's just super cool because computers are just getting more and more relevant and important every day for our lives. So I don't know. All good stuff. Lenovo, always impressive with their technology. Speaking of, I did get the Lenovo Yoga 9i, not the Yoga Book, the Yoga 9i Gen 8. That's the one. It's a 14-inch laptop. It's the one with the sound bar in it, where the hinge is, and then it's a 360. Yeah, so it's a 360 device where the display flips around to the back, turns into a tablet, includes a pen, has a OLED display that's around I believe 3K. So I reviewed the Gen 7 last year, and I basically said it was early. It was like May, I think I reviewed it, and I was like, I didn't want to call it the best laptop of 2022 because it was so early, but I was like, this is basically one of the best laptops. Yeah, I like the Dragonfly, but the Dragonfly is a business laptop, right? This is a straight up kind of consumer laptop, and it's basically perfect. I had to say things like, well, it doesn't have 5G, which, let's be honest, only I kind of care about that, and a handful of other people. So that's not really a ding. And the battery life was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it was okay. So they released the Gen 8, which I just got in, and it's in my favorite color, what they call oatmeal, which is like basically like a very pale gold. But it's great because it doesn't show fingerprints or anything. And all they did was basically throw in 13th gen. So I'm going to update that review. I'll put in the new specs and all that, and the new benchmarks. But if you're looking for a laptop and you just want the TLDR, like honestly, this is arguably one of my favorite laptops out there. I still like Surface Laptop Studio if you need a GPU, but I would hold off until the one we're expected to get either this spring or summer, which will have 13th gen. But that's a beefier and more powerful laptop. If you just want like more of an Ultrabook, that's a convertible that has amazing sound, that has a really, really amazing display, a great keyboard, awesome touchpad, comes with a pen, and even comes with a case. I love the Yoga 9i is easily one of my favorite laptops. Spectre, HP Spectre 13.5, very close. Also an amazing laptop too. I would actually rate them both very kind of close, but something about the Yoga, I just kind of like its design. It's got very whereas the Spectre has more angled edges. Oh, they kind of rounded it off this year, which was nice. The Yoga is very curvy. It's very soft. It just has a really nice design language to it. But yeah, if you just want a laptop, go get, and you can just probably find the 12th gen for cheaper, at this point. I don't think it's going to be a massive difference. The 13th gen will be more powerful. Like I said, battery life hopefully will be better. It'll also have some newer components, I think like Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. I'm not even sure if that was in the Gen 7. But what an awesome laptop. I love, it's one I love just using myself. So that's cool. And I did get the Samsung Galaxy Book 3 Ultra in. I don't know if I'm going to review that or I'll send it to Zachary Body to review because I got a lot on my plate. But that's neat. That's got the 4050 GPU in it, and that's at Samsung's first 16-inch like GPU kind of workstation multimedia creator laptop, and it's got all the benefits of their previous laptops. Just it's slightly thicker and has a GPU in it, but yeah, what's cool too? That has a number pad, and I always dig on number pads because they kind of get in the way. But they did a good job. They it doesn't, the keyboard, the main keyboard really isn't, it's just slightly off center, but not dramatically. But they also lined up the touchpad with the space bar. So it's basically even, and so it's just slightly off center, but not a lot. So I think some people might complain the number pad's like too small. For me, as someone who doesn't like them because they get in the way, I was actually, you know what, I could totally use this. So we'll be reviewing that as well soon. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming out here for laptops. Anything catching your eyes these days, Zach?
Not currently, no. I've actually not been keeping a close eye on these recent trade shows. I'm looking for. I'm just, I'm all in on Surface, so, so I try not to look at all the cool stuff going on elsewhere because it makes me sad.
Yeah, I tell you, the Yoga 9i's display is just not only. Oh yeah, not only is it OLED touch, supports pen, you can turn on 90 hertz for it, which is great.
Oh, nice. That is nice.
So,
yeah.
And it's not even adaptive. It's just 90 hertz. You can do 90 or 60. So you just leave it on 90, which is pretty wild. Not as good as 120, but it gives you that little extra smoothness. And it was not even a feature that they even advertised, which is really funny. But yeah, what a cool laptop. So, okay, I think we want to do a thing of the week. Do you have a thing of the week?
I actually don't. I was gonna say The Mandalorian, but as we discussed before the show started, it wasn't a very interesting episode. It was very much a setup episode. Nothing much really happened. It was, I won't spoil it, but Mando going around talking to a bunch of different characters who I'm assuming are going to play roles throughout the season. But yeah, nothing happened. It was a non-event episode. So that's my thing of the week.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch it, but my best friend Seth said the pretty much the same thing. As we were talking about, The Last of Us has really set the bar high for must-watch TV, and everything else kind of pales in comparison. That said, Succession season 4 trailer dropped, and that looks amazing. If you haven't watched Succession on HBO, what's wrong with you? That is arguably one of the best shows around since Mad Men, I would say. So that's really cool. My thing of the week, I used, oh, now I just set myself up to fail here, unfortunately. I used, and there's a website called There's an AI for that, which is so funny. And it basically documents AI tools out there that you can use. And one of them was for movies. You basically type in like kind of what you're looking for and genres, years and stuff. And so I put in my favorite decade for movies is like the 1970s because it was so dark and cynical. Like a lot of the films that came out then were just like very negative. Like a lot of movies end on like a happy ending. A lot of 70s films don't. They're just like, yes, and it's as bad as you think. It was such a different tone. And it was just reflected at the time, but the economy wasn't good. And there was it was the hangover from the 60s, basically. The 80s kind of recouped that a little bit. The 80s became a lot more fun and jovial and bright with colors, but the 70s was dark and gritty. So I like a lot of the cinema there. But I've seen like a lot. So I typed in like 70s dystopian and like a couple other keywords, and I got like these such a massive list of movies I'd never heard of. One was called Phase 4, which is like this experimental art film about cosmic rays or something like that hit the Earth and turn ants against us. So it's not like the movie Them, which had giant ants. That's a great movie too. These are just like regular ants that just become super sentient and decide to like kill humans, which is pretty funny. But it's a very artsy looking film too. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm going to watch that one. I did watch a movie that's on HBO Max, again, 1979, called The Brood, which has been on my to-do list for a while. And wow, that's a movie. It's again very 70s. I love the graininess to the film. And it's just let's just say there's like little kill children in it, hence the brood part. And it's so creepy and freaky. And the way the last 20 minutes of the movie, kind of my jaw was a little bit on the floor with the one scene. It was just like, wow, that was something. And I watched another one called No Blade of Grass, which came out in 1970 and was based on a book. It's not a great movie. I want to get this out in front. It's not a great movie, but it's an experience. Like when you watch this, you're just like, wow. And the concept was cool. It was about like there's some kind of fungus that's going around the world, kind of like Last of Us, but it's affecting the grass and like wheat and all the grain stuff basically. And so a lot of what were called at the time the third world was experiencing this and was destroying all their crops, and they were experiencing famine. And then they were juxtaposed, it's a British film, so juxtaposed to like London, and you see people all being posh and being in a restaurant full of food and just shoving them. And then on the TV, you'll be like starving kids. And it's really on the nose. It was one of the first or like really environmental films that was like really concerned with how humanity, basically that's where this fungus thing came from, was from pollution and all this kind of stuff. And the movie literally opens with like smokestacks and factories and oil spills and birds covered in oil and people coughing, and it's just like, and then it goes to like society, but then it eventually affects Europe and specifically the UK, and the UK goes from like this like functional society to Mad Max in like 3 days. It was just, the director was so cynical and on his view of humans that like people are just shooting each other. It's like, wow. Interesting film. I rented it for $1.99. Like I said, it's not great cinema, but super interesting cinema, if only because it was such a cultural reflection of, that's when Silent Spring and all these like books started coming out about the effects of the environment and everything and how we were impacting it. And this movie is a reflection of that. And it's just it was interesting. I never got bored watching it, that's for sure. But it's one of those kind of wow movies. So I'll be sharing. I have a whole list of these. So I also uh, my SO watch Chud, which was a 1980s movie, early 80s, that had Daniel Stern in it, one of his first early roles, and John Goodman has a cameo. Like really, he's so young in it. It's just a cameo for a few minutes. Chud stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. That movie reflects the paranoia of the 80s with nuclear power and what we were doing with all the waste. Basically, the waste goes underneath the city and turns poor people who are what we call people experiencing homelessness. It would turn them into these cannibalistic humanoid underground monsters who are then snatching people from above and eating them and all that kind of. It's a wild movie, but yeah. So I'm on this kick because that's such a great phase of movies. I almost don't like the horror stuff today because it's so clean and perfect and just high resolution. I don't know why. For some reason, it just kind of ruins it. That said, there have been some really good horror movies the last few years. So, but those are my things of the week. Yeah. So we'll be now turning to questions with the audience. So if you have them, start firing them off into the podcast and we'll answer them. Of course, if you're listening to this recorded, you don't get to hear that part, but we do record every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. Follow me at Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. You can ask us questions there. As always, thanks to our sponsor, Indeed, for the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. So yes, if you have any questions, we'll hang around for a few minutes and try our best to answer them. If there are no questions.
My weekend equals... Yeah, my weekend's going to be Godzilla. HBO Max has a bunch of Godzilla films on it, so...
By the way, Dan, regarding that thing that we talked about before the podcast, that email, I will tackle that.
Yeah, I'm sure you. I assume so. Yeah, let me go read what it is. Ooh.
Yeah. Quite an interesting change. Anything about Microsoft Loop Workspace app? No, sadly, no news. Do you play Planet Coaster? I have played Planet Coaster in the past. I'm not a frequent player. But yeah, no, I have.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes, it is. Gonna make my job a lot harder. Does not look like there are many questions this week, which is fine by me.
Yeah, I need to go take a nap. Anything about Microsoft Loop Workspace? Did you answer that?
I just answered that. The answer is no.
Yeah, okay. Do you play Planet Coaster? No, have not heard of it. I've been still doing Vampire Survivors. Oh, construction and management sim video game. Those games are so cool, but I don't have the time or attention span to do them. I'd rather watch 70s dystopian movies about how the world's going to end. There was one movie I want to watch called The Chosen One, and it's about this company is building a nuclear power plant in the Middle East, and the guy that's leading it has a son who apparently is the Antichrist. Like, what? Like, he wants to blow it up or something. I was just like, what the? There's another one with H.G. Wells and his time machine, but then Jack the Ripper finds it and goes into the future. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. Yeah, there's some wacky ideas for movies. Good stuff. When are we expecting the next Surface announcements? I mean, we always get a spring announcement. Now, those historically, not always, have been refreshes, but on occasion they do announce a new device. I believe Surface Go was announced in the spring. And yeah, so will we expect a new form factor? I don't think so. And Zach could speak more to that, but we're not expecting a new form factor this year. But
No.
Surface Go will be interesting
Yeah.
because I believe Zach thinks that it's going to go to ARM.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Laptop Studio 2 because that's going to get really powerful if the rumored specs are accurate.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's
we should have talked about
probably it.
that. How did we not
Didn't
talk
we talk
about
about that
that?
last week? Oh,
I do not know. Maybe I can't remember. Oh well, don't matter. Someone was
uh,
asking, when will Windows 12 beta get released in March 2023? No, maybe, but I doubt it.
uh, Hanley's asking about the moment two about getting a tablet taskbar. I believe again that's related to the fact that it's what Zach
Yeah.
was talking about earlier. Zach, if you want to.
Yeah, I mentioned on the podcast. If you install the optional update through Windows Updates, you may not get all of the new features yet. They are sort of rolling out gradually and will be all enabled on March 14. If you'd like to have all the features now, you can join the release preview channel in the Insider program, and that will turn on all the features.
Dan, have you tried the AMD Yoga 7 14-inch OLED? I just got it and it's great, but so many weird technical issues. I have not tried that, but your description is similar to the description I was saying earlier with another company's AMD laptop. I would describe it as weird technical issues. This is where, again, like, and I hate to say it because people like to call me like I'm anti AMD and I'm not, but in my experience, I have not in laptops really seen like this advantage to AMD. Everybody's like, oh, they're more efficient, and I get it. I get that's the PR release, and every time I talk to AMD, they tell me that. I'm not sure I necessarily experienced that. I will say they tend to be a little bit more powerful, but the way I use laptops, power isn't necessarily a concern for me. I don't need a very powerful laptop for my job. I do prefer battery life. But I have experienced what I would describe are odd technical issues with AMD laptops, yes. So it doesn't surprise me. What i5 will work with Windows 12? You know, it's too early to say about Windows 12 and the hardware requirements. Like, will it be like Windows 11? I think what's going to happen is, well, first of all, I don't think they might rule out some older core processors, but I don't think you're going to need the latest to run it either. I think in order to gain some benefits of the new Windows 12 features, you'll probably need a newer processor. But like I think if you're getting a 12th gen, a 13th gen chips, you'll be fine. But it's too early to say what they're going to do. Do I still use the ThinkPad X13S as your travel laptop? I do. In fact, I haven't traveled much lately, but yeah, I got it right here in my bag. Actually, it's ready to go all the time. I still that's such a great compact laptop, and I still got to do something on it. And I apologize, I haven't. I know it's getting late to do something, but it's compact but not small is how I would describe it. Meaning that if it works great on airplanes and everything, but I never feel like I'm cramped on it. It's really they found this like perfect size for a laptop that's very portable, but you don't feel you're cramped. Like they couldn't make it any smaller and keep the way it is. But yeah, I still absolutely love that thing. It gets amazing battery life, very reliable. Never had any issues with it.
So yeah, we didn't talk about the Laptop Studio 2 last week. Oops. Okay, we'll briefly talk about it now. Specs for it leaked on Geekbench last week, and it revealed Microsoft is testing a version with an Intel Core i7-13800H, which is a very powerful chip, along with an NVIDIA RTX 4060 laptop GPU. So this is going to be a monster of a machine. 64 gigs of RAM. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it will ship with 64 gigs of RAM. It just means they are testing a version with 64 gigs of RAM. But we've also seen a version here with an Intel Core i5 1350P, so a P series chip there as well. And
Interesting.
that has, I believe, so it'll be just like the laptop one where you get the entry level model has like Intel Iris Xe and a sort of lower spec chip, and then you upgrade to 32 or 64 gigs RAM. It comes with dedicated NVIDIA GPU and a much more powerful processor. But yeah, other than that, I know the codename for it is ERSA, ERSA. And that's basically all we know. I do know that the design is not supposed to change. It's supposed to be basically the same as the first gen. And
which is
also,
fine.
I've not heard that there's going to be a new size. So still 14.4 inches, no 16 inches as far as I'm aware.
I love that laptop. Dan and Zach, Amazon has the Surface Pro X SQ2 for $559. Is that a good pickup? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I would definitely get that. Throw in the cover. Yeah, that's a cool device, man. Absolutely.
Still the thinnest Surface Pro and arguably prettier than the Surface Pro 9 5G.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Do you think the TikTok ban that is or will happen before long will impact Microsoft as a whole? No, and I don't think that they're going to ban it, to be honest. I think that's a lot of talk. I don't think they're going to do it. Any chance we get a P? So sorry. Any chance we get a P series chips in the regular Surface laptop refresh?
I don't know.
They could, but they have small batteries in them laptops, and that would affect it. Yeah. Do you think, Zach? Do you think they're going to do Windows 12 as a preview release, or they're just going to keep everything in like the channels, the insider channels? And then those will be folded into Windows 12.
A Windows 11 announcement type thing where they will be working on Windows in the openly. Sorry, let me say that again. They will be working on Windows openly over the next 2 years, but any sort of big UI redesign or any sort of change like that will be kept back until they're ready to announce it as a new product. Like we're going to get kernel improvements, we're going to get under the hood improvements, platform enhancements, new APIs, this, that, and the other. But we won't see the actual look and feel of whatever the next version of Windows is supposed to look like until Microsoft is ready, likely in May or June next year. But yeah, that doesn't mean there's not new features to test in the meantime. We've still got Windows 11 23H2 to come, which will have new features in it as well. And then we also have half of next year at least for new moment updates on top of Windows 11 23H2. So yeah, that I don't think that's gonna change. There will be news about Windows stuff next week, so I'll just say that much.
There's always news.
Yeah. All right, last call for questions.
Someone's asking, has my dog destroyed anything? No, she's perfect. She doesn't destroy stuff. She's not a puppy either, so she's like, well, we don't know how old she is, but she's probably between 1 or 2, so she's not. My cat, though, PB, we were talking about that yesterday. He treats wires as like they're licorice and loves chewing on them. So I gotta be very careful with him.
Do you think Moment 3 will be bigger or smaller? I think it will probably be about the same. I don't think these moments are going to be like big releases. I think if Microsoft has any big changes planned, that will be for the annual release in the fall. So 23H2. The problem with the annual fall release now is that because of the moment engineering effort, the original plan for Sun Valley 3, as it was codenamed originally, was sort of spread out. So it was like, instead of waiting for the fall, we'll just have we'll spread it out. So some stuff will come in February, other bits will come in May. So what do they say for the full version of Windows? I don't know, but I guess we'll see. I guess the biggest stuff that they had planned will remain as part of the full release. So I assume that will include the new File Explorer.
Will haptic touchpad come to Surface Laptop 6? Maybe. I sure would like to for it.
Yeah, I would love that too. Is the Surface Go 4 with ARM still in the works? As far as I'm aware, yes.
Someone's asking about watches. I don't think I bought a new watch. I do have a Zen 104 GMT Diapple, but I'm not wearing that right now. But I am wearing my Zen 104 watch, and I did order a bracelet for it because I just have it on NATO strap, which works well. But actually, the Zen 104 is an amazing watch. It's not very expensive, that I highly recommend.
I'm going to email the podcast editor now.
Regarding the question, the i5 9400T work with Windows 12 AI features? We have absolutely no idea. Couldn't tell you that. That's way too early. H series chips means it's got to be 15 or 16 inch version, right? Not necessarily. I've run 13 and 14 inch laptops with H series. Vio has done them before, and yeah, some other companies are too, because they're getting pretty thin. And actually, Lenovo in the ThinkPad X1 Carbons, you can get H series, I believe, in those. So yeah, it doesn't really matter anymore. Those chips are very interchangeable for those companies. So, but yeah, historically that's the way it was, but I wouldn't say it's that way anymore. I still think it's overkill for a lot of people, but it's nice to have. All right, I think we can wrap it up then.
Cool. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.